Welcome to Motorhome Talk. I'm Mike and I love to talk about motorhomes. Today I'm going to tell you a little story of what happened to me a few days ago. I have a watchdog system for surge protection, and it's a 50 amp with an EPO, which is an emergency power shutoff. As I showed you in the previous picture, that was my watchdog with a white face. I did find this ad of watchdog here in one of the motorhome magazines, and I just thought I'd show that to you. I have no financial interest whatsoever in watchdog. They pay me nothing. I just chose watchdog because I like the product. And why I like the product was two things. One, the readout is almost instantaneous of the power. When you plug the watchdog in, it'll turn white or red almost within 3 or 4 seconds, which is pretty quick for a surge protector. It analyzes the power, and I like that fact. And the second thing I liked was it had a giant big watchdog face, which is pretty easy to see anywhere. It doesn't have a little button or anything. It's a big watchdog place. Sometimes it's a little bright in the campground, but it gets my attention. Again, mine was inside at this point, so I've got to rethink that. But those are the two reasons. And then of course, if it does turn red, as I previously noted, it will give you a code error, and then you can look up the code error and try to troubleshoot it as we did in this video. So those are the two reasons that I chose watchdog. Again, there's lots of other units out there, and you can check them out and see which one works best for you. So I'll continue and tell you a little more about what happened with the power surge. So if something goes wrong, it shuts off my power to my motor coach. Well, I noticed, or actually my son-in-law noticed, that my watchdog face, which normally is white, had turned red. The watchdog is in the barn because it's not exposed on the outside. That's where my plug is. So it was inside and I didn't see it from my motorhome. But he called me and he said, "Hey Mike, your watchdog face turned red. Better get down here and see what's going on." So I came down and it was red and it showed code error E3. So I looked up what code error E3 was, and that showed that there was an overcurrent on line 1. It said there's two causes for that. One, that the shore power at the pedestal should have tripped but didn't, or two, that my coach was drawing too much power. Well, I knew my coach wasn't drawing too much power because nothing was running. Nobody was in it. The AC was off. The only thing on was the refrigerator. So I said, what am I going to do? Well, I'm not electrician. However, I did have a voltmeter, and I checked the source from the pedestal, and it was fine. Then I hooked up the watchdog, and it turned white. And then I checked the power running through the watchdog, and it was fine. So then I said, well, I'll eliminate the watchdog and just plug it right into the plug right off the pedestal. But that didn't solve the problem because I went to the coach. It was still reading too high on line 1. This is the command center where you can see that I have direct view of what power source I'm using. Here you can see it says AC shore, and then you also can see line 1 and line 2. Air conditioning is on now, so line 1 is 30 amps, line 2 is 14, and that line 1 was the one that was 49 to 52. So this just gives you a perspective of what I was seeing. Line 1 was reading 49 to 52 amps, and line 2, and don't hold me to this, but it was reading about 6 to 8 amps. And I noticed that I wasn't on shore power, but I'm pretty sure it said inverter because my watchdog should have shut off my shore power. But I was kind of anxious at this time, so I can't remember all those particular details. However, I had a problem. So I decided I'd call Newell, because Newell has a 24/7 call when you have a problem. So I called Newell, and they connected me to an electrician. And I explained to the electrician what was going on. So he said, what's your line 1 reading? And I said, 49 to 52. So he goes, whoa, well, that's not good. And I said, yeah. So he said, what's it show for shore power? And I said, no, it says inverter. So he said, let's try your generator and see if that should override your shore power, and we'll see what happens. So I turned on my generator, and normally in my coach, when I turn on my generator, after it starts, then there's a lull before it kicks over to generator power. But immediately when it turns on, there's a green light that lets me know I've turned on my generator, although you can hear it. This time, the green light didn't come on. And when I went back to look at the command center, I had noticed that it hadn't flipped over to generator. So we waited and we watched a little more, but it still hadn't switched over. So he had me shut that off and then look back. And I still had the shore power connected without the Watchdog, I think with Watchdog on. And it still was reading 51 on line, between 49 and 52, I think, on line 1. So he thought that there was two issues going on. One was the shore power issue, and 2 was the generator issue. So he decided that the next best step would be to shut down the coach completely. So I've never done that before, but it was pretty simple. So he told me to go to the battery the batteries which are underneath the coach. So there was an easy switch off there, so I just turned that off. And he said, this is going to shut down everything on your coach. So leave the front door open, you're not going to be able to get back in because it uses power to get back in. And then he had me go around to my cord, that's my power cord that comes out of the coach that I plug in. And he had me, there's a button there that you shut off in the newel, and that shut off. So we were completely dead of power at that point. Then he had me turn it back on. We went back in again, and we noticed that the power that the 49 had dropped back down to normal, and it had the reading on the board showed that it dropped back down to single digits on both line 1 and line 2, which was good, and it was coming from shore power. Now I didn't have my Watchdog plugged in, so I went back and I plugged the Watchdog back in to see if it turned red, and it did not. It turned white. So we solved the power problem. Now the cause of the power problem we didn't know. Next step was to work on the generator, because when I came back in, on the module it still showed inverter. So we decided to try the generator again. So we turned on the generator, and the generator would not read as far as the command board went. It still was going to inverter. So he decided that it might be a transfer switch underneath that transfer the power from shore to generator to batteries. So he was going to have me crawl underneath into the belly of the motor coach, but I'm not too agile. So I went and I got my son-in-law, Matt, who you've met before, and he came out and he crawled in there and he opened the door, and the electrician from Newell said to put his finger in the transfer switch to feel if there was a button sticking out. And Matt did, and Matt said, yeah, there was. So the next step was to take a small screwdriver and push that in. So he got in there eventually because it was tight, and he pushed it in. And then I ran back in and noticed that we had switched back over to shore power from the inverter. So next step was to try the generator. So we turned the generator back on, and lo and behold, it did kick over to generator. And we tried that a couple of times to make sure that it was still going to follow, because he thought maybe it had been some sort of a circuit board or the transfer switch was off. But each time we did it, everything was working fine. So he said, watch it and see how it goes, and if there's a problem, then they'll deal with it later. So that solved my problem. However, I just thought I should pass this on, because having the Watchdog was really, really helpful. Now, it saved me before when I pulled into pedestals that I had real issues. But I was sitting in the motor coach, and I didn't know I had a problem because I wasn't looking at my board constantly. But when it turned red, I knew that I had a problem, and I was drawing way too much power, and that could have been a significant problem. So it's something to think about, getting some sort of a surge protector, or in my case, the Watchdog with that EPO, which automatically shuts off the power and then leaves the light red, and then you can go and figure it out. But I thought I'd pass this on. Maybe people know to go out and to reboot it. But again, I didn't know I had a problem till the Watchdog told me. Still don't know what caused the problem, but the bottom line is we've rebooted some things, and everything seems to be running fine. Just thought I'd pass this on. Thanks for watching.